His goal is to be able to read those books. After all, there are countless districts for him to keep climbing through, and in each one there will be different books he'll need to study to gain more knowledge. Veronica says he can count on her. They're not even opening the shop anyway, so she's always available to help the boy. He tells her the shop could technically start opening again though. Looks like those guys aren't coming back. Shocked, she reads the look on his face and asks if he killed them. But he says he's not cruel enough to kill someone just for throwing a rock at a window. Yeah, I guess I got carried away asking him to slaughter everyone. With that, lesson time begins. Books on the table. She starts explaining languages, this and that. He wants to know how long it'll take to study, and she says at most a month. He says fine, he'll give it his all. They start working on some math problems or something. She gives him exercises, but he breezes through them, says he's finished. I thought he'd get them all right, but she shows him he missed just one. At that pace, they might finish even faster than she thought. But then the class ends for the day, and she says she wants to ask him something. She wants him to watch while she tries to make a circle to see what she's doing wrong. He figures it won't help since he has no idea what he could even teach her, but she says it's fine. She just wants him to watch. If he happens to notice something, he can say it. If not, no problem. As payment for teaching him, he agrees and she thanks him. He then asks if he can read some books, and she says sure. So he starts with the dictionary. The little tough guy, huh? Wants to learn the words. Actually, he's just looking for one word, and that word is rainbow. What did you think it was going to be? She says she doubts he'll be there anyway, because the way he uses the term rainbow is tied to mage stuff. At that moment, he's already using magic to pull a little book into his hand and then several more. Damn, what was that? He notices it's been getting easier and easier to use his mana lately. He can't wait to get back to the carriage where no one's watching so he can test all kinds of things. Right now, inside his magic ring, there's red mana, light pink mana, and white mana. The light pink mana from the environment was tough and difficult to manipulate, but once refined in the ring, it became as easy as any other. He's eager to experiment more and more to learn new spells. What he doesn't realize is that the difficulty he feels with the light pink mana is because it represents sadness, something that after that tragedy, he developed a kind of aversion to. Sometime later, just like Veronica said, he finds nothing about the rainbow, but suddenly, he reads something that looks important and runs out, saying he's got something to do and he'll be back. At that moment, he's already leaving, saying now he knows what that guy with the hat was aiming for. Like any proper mage, what the man wanted was an offering, rituals where animals or people are sacrificed. And now it's clear why he wanted 66 children. All of it was somehow tied to that strengthening ring. And most likely, the magic of the ring was forcing Kendrick to push himself harder and harder to reach that number. That guy was just waiting for Kendrick to deliver the good news of success. All of a sudden, the protagonist is sitting in front of a banquet. He went to a restaurant, and now that he's famous in town, the kids are bringing him everything. Ah, this is that same shop where the guy with the hat always goes. One of the kids says he saw that man passing by and smiling, saying something about how the time was almost here. Ray decides he's going to have to deal with this. So off he goes, boldly heading back to the man's base again. Down there were clues connected to Mark Red, and he couldn't waste the chance to investigate. He isn't sure what the best option will be when suddenly a couple of guys come from the left. They're hiding under the stairs, talking about how they punched somebody, when Ray puts a hand on one of their shoulders. The guy spins around ready to throw an elbow, until he sees it's the protagonist and freezes in shock. Right away they turn friendly, asking how he's doing, what's the problem, and how they can help. Looks like what he wants is for them to warn him when the guy with the hat comes back home. That way he can slip out in time and not get trapped downstairs. They want to know what's in it for them. The protagonist says they can have a banquet at the shop, and instantly the fools agree. He heads down the stairs, goes to the lock, tries the same magic as before, but this time doesn't work. The padlock has been reinforced somehow. He knows that if he breaks it, the man will know someone was there. Right then, the kid shows up saying the man has arrived, and the protagonist has to get out. Nothing suspicious. He's standing right in front of the man's house with his arms crossed. The man walks up, stares at him, but Ray doesn't even glance back. The man passes by, and Ray's relieved he wasn't recognized and that he managed to pick up some useful information. Next evening, he's with Kendrick, who's shaking nervously, asking if he's sure about this. The protagonist tells him not to worry, just do what he said. And then the guy with the hat shows up at that very moment, staring right at the two of them. They bow, and Kendrick says it's been a long time since he last saw the boss. The man tells Kendrick to raise his head and cut out the formalities. He wants to know about that number of people, but before that, he wants to know who this kid is. Kendrick says he's a newcomer who recently got the title of vice leader. Thought it'd be good to introduce him, so he brought him along. The man tells the boy to raise his head and asks his name. Creative as always, the protagonist says his name is Niles. The man looks at him, then says fine, he should just work hard. The protagonist is glad it seems the bastard didn't recognize him from before. Inside, the man with the hat asks how many people they have. Kendrick says he's been working hard and managed to gather 63. The man says he doesn't want any weaklings, and Kendrick promises he's only picking the strong ones. Suddenly, the guy bursts out laughing like a maniac, saying Kendrick really is doing an amazing job. Once they reach 66, all they have to do is bring everyone to the organization. Kendrick, all excited, says he can't believe he'll be part of such an incredible group. The man with the hat tells him he's a lucky kid. Turns out his organization needs a new unit to train and their group will be perfect. Kendrick thanks him, saying it's truly a blessing to meet the master, but deep down he already knows this bastard is lying straight to his face. Obviously, a guy with such shabby clothes and half-baked plans isn't some high-level executive. Even Kendrick is starting to realize how stupid he was to believe this guy just because he handed him a ring. The protagonist, though, says he wants to ask something. He's heard the group operates in different regions, so he wanted to know what sector and headquarters this guy belongs to. The man with the hat says he doesn't know where Ray heard that from. Mark Red doesn't have divisions. It's basically an organization with countless members working individually all over the place. Ray notices that the information is true since the man's mana circle stayed the same. And then the guy with the hat says their headquarters is actually down in 43. All their operations are supposedly planned there. Yeah, sure, you're trying to lie. But our boy catches it right away because the man's mana wavered. Ray just says fine, then asks what the boss looks like. The guy with the hat freezes, starts thinking about the boss, and trembles all over. He only mutters that the boss is someone incredible. Someone like him in the organization would never even have the courage to look in his direction. That's how terrifying and amazing he is. Ray can tell it's a mix of admiration and fear. The man then says he knows the kids are gathering there in 2 days and announces that he'll be coming to check on how things are going. And right then, Ray sees mana leaking from his hand and seeping into the ground. It wasn't much, but in a strange way, the guy had started forming a magic circle. Clearly, the whole place was going to be used for something. The man pulls some stones from his pocket and Kendrick wants to know what they are. The guy says there's something incredible. The stones float into the air and Kendrick asks Ray if this is okay. Ray tells him yes, nothing to worry about. The stones fly to different corners of the magic circle, which seems to solidify completely. The man tells them not to be afraid. It's just a ring with the same mana as Kendrick's ring. Then he orders them to watch over the place and make sure nobody causes trouble. He also warns Kendrick to guard the ring he received as if it were his very life and never lose it under any circumstances. Kendrick, wearing the ring, nods and says fine, he'll keep that in mind. Walter then leaves, saying he'll be back in 3 days. The door shuts and Kendrick collapses in shock, asking what that guy is planning. Ray answers that's exactly what they need to find out. But for now, Kendrick should head back to the hotel, because there's something Ray has to handle here. From above, Ray watches the magic circles, trying to figure out what they are. He decides to sketch everything down because he knows someone who might have an idea. The next day, of course, he shows the circle to the old man, who immediately asks if what was drawn had any connection to the Mark Red executive. Ray notices the old man caught on instantly and admits yes. The old man warns him to be careful because he's gotten involved with something truly dangerous. What Ray had seen was a magic circle, something that drastically amplifies the power of a spell. It's a difficult technique that only a handful of people can use, and the one Ray drew was a perfect magic circle. What surprises the old man is that the boy sketched it flawlessly without any training at all. That's because magic circles condense an absurd amount of mana into a tiny space. Because of that, trying to grasp each inscription through sensing mana is extremely difficult. But for our protagonist, it wasn't. He just drew it, since he can literally see mana. For the old man, this should have been impossible. It's like being able to understand the arrangement of ultra-fine lines. The only way someone could replicate something like that without prior knowledge would be if they could see it with their own eyes. So yeah, the clever kid is figuring everything out, and the protagonist wants to know what the circle is for. The old man says, just like with the ring, it's a magic of exploitation. Still, he's thinking to himself that this whole thing about seeing mana with his eyes makes no sense. He needs to come back to reality. The protagonist then asks if the circle is going to be used to strengthen the magic and expand its area of effect. And the old man says yes, most likely. When that magic is activated, something will happen to everyone involved. Or more likely, all living beings would die and their life force would be absorbed and converted into magical power. Right away, Ray makes the connection with that whole sacrifice thing. The 66 children and the magic circle. Those kids were all going to be used so that man could get more magic. But the old man explains that a human can't handle mana that concentrated. That's because mana created from the life force of living beings is extremely toxic. Basically, it's one of the easiest ways to get poisoned. That's why no one ever bothers refining items or stones with it. What they usually do instead is create a magical creature and feed it that type of mana. The protagonist asks if the stone in the ring could also be used for that. The old man replies that maybe, if that were the case, things would work differently. Poor Ray, he's left with even more questions than before. The old man wants to know what he plans to do. Ray thinks about it but doesn't say a word. And just like that, we jump 3 days ahead to the promised time. He's standing at the door when Walter arrives, wanting to know where Kendrick is. The protagonist answers that he's inside the warehouse giving orders to everyone, so he came to greet him instead. The man thanks him and says they can go in, but the 66 people better be there as promised. He already thanks them for the hard work, yet when he opens the warehouse, it's completely empty. He's about to ask why no one is there when the protagonist is already coming at him from behind. At least Ray's strike is precise and sneaky, but of course the man defends himself. He immediately demands to know what the bastard thinks he's doing.